If you have US dollars in your bank account, pay close attention because we could be days away from the biggest change to our financial system in 52 years. As a former vice president of a major US investment bank, I feel it's my duty to help you prepare for what I believe is coming. I'm Teeka Tiwari. I'll fully introduce myself in just a moment, but first, take a look at this. The US dollar, it's already in free fall. All over the media, all you see are headlines about the end of the dollar. De-dollarization has begun. 23 countries now abandoning US dollar. Expert predicts looming economic collapse as BRICS nations unite against the dollar. I could go on and on, but the bottom line is the US dollar is in big trouble. And I believe the US government will soon announce a radical plan to stop this bleeding. They'll announce a mandatory national recall on the US dollar and replace it with a new digital version that will be radically different from what you have in your bank account right now. And you need to prepare now because they could officially announce this recall as soon as July 26. As Business Insider says, the U.S. Treasury's efforts to create a U.S. digital currency could be imminent. Bank of America is already warning its clients that all checking accounts are likely to be replaced with digital dollars. And it's not just Bank of America. Take a look at this. More than 110 banks have already enrolled in a pilot program that I believe is the Trojan horse for the digital dollar. I'm talking about banks like JP Morgan Chase, the largest bank in America, US Bank, Wells Fargo, Citigroup, just to name a few. There's a very good chance your bank is on this list. I'll give you the complete list in just a moment, and I'll tell you exactly the 3 simple steps you need to take to opt out of this dollar recall because we don't have much time to prepare. According to Yahoo Finance, the Treasury, the Fed, and White House offices will meet regularly in the coming months and offer interim updates to the public about this recall. Once they make the official announcement, most Americans will be caught completely off guard and they could end up holding a bunch of worthless US dollars. But it doesn't have to be like that for you and your family. You see, the bureaucrats who run our government don't know much about digital currencies. They wouldn't know how to pull this off. That's why the US government is turning to the private sector to help them implement this massive change to our financial system. As Barron says, the largest central banks are starting to bring in big tech companies to research, design, and potentially launch central bank digital currencies, or CBDCs. Just the 4 biggest central banks alone manage more than $28 trillion, and they can print unlimited amounts of money on demand. And that's where the opportunity comes in. There are potentially trillions of dollars involved in the development of these digital currencies. And if you know which companies are working on these CBDC projects and which assets would benefit from a digital dollar, you could come out of this US dollar recall wealthier than you ever thought possible, no matter what's happening with our economy. That's why billionaires like Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, and the founder of Google, Larry Page, are all prepared to cash in on this major shift. I've personally already moved over $1 million of my own money in preparation for this recall. So in the next few minutes, I'm going to give you all the details and help you prepare. I'm going to show you a controversial video that proves that our financial authorities are planning a national recall on the US dollar. I'll show you confirmation that they've already scheduled an official announcement for July 26 at 2 p.m. Eastern. And I'll explain why I believe they could make the recall official that day. I'll also tell you the one move you must make when your bank tells you they're moving all your cash into this new digital dollar. It's not an exaggeration to say your entire life savings could depend on this one single move. I'll also discuss several companies that are helping governments around the world develop these central bank digital currencies, or CBDCs. I'll mention names and ticker symbols completely free of charge. Feel free to write them down because I believe their stocks could skyrocket in the coming months. As Barron says, right now there's a gold rush emerging in CBDCs. So I'll give you the names of these companies because they're well positioned to cash in on this gold rush. I'll also give you the details on the 25-cent alternative investment that could skyrocket when this dollar recall begins. Now, most people don't even know this exists because it has nothing to do with precious metals or commodities, but it's the same type of investment that's already attracting the attention of legendary investors and billionaires like the founder of Tesla, Elon Musk, Shark Tank star Mark Cuban, billionaire George Soros, legendary hedge fund manager Paul Tudor Jones, and the co-founder of Apple, Steve Wozniak. Even though these billionaires are all in, this isn't reserved for rich people only. In fact, you can get started with this alternative investment with less than 25 cents. And you can buy it right from your computer with just a few clicks. Look, all these legends are already putting their money on the line because I'm talking about the biggest change to our financial system in more than half a century. This isn't something that happens every year or even every decade. It's a rare opportunity you'll likely never see again. I mean, they can only implement a national recall on the US dollar one time. That means today could be your only chance to prepare for this imminent threat. So let me give you all the details because we really don't have much time left. Like I said before, my name is Teeka Tiwari. I worked on Wall Street across 3 separate decades. I was a vice president at Shearson Lehman, which is one of the largest investment banking firms in the US. At one point, I even ran my own multi-million-dollar hedge fund. As a former money manager, I've been directly involved in our financial system throughout most of my adult life. So when I first heard about digital currencies, it took me just a few months of research to realize it would be a game changer. That's why in 2016, when most people thought digital currencies were scams, I put my career on the line. And I publicly recommended digital currencies like Bitcoin and Ethereum. Look at what I wrote. I predict Americans are going to carve off a portion of their liquid assets and put them into cryptocurrencies as a form of insurance. They won't put much in at first, but as they see the price starts exploding higher, they will stampede into digital currencies like a herd of elephants bolting through a mouse hole. Most people ridiculed me at the time, but that's exactly what happened. And anyone who listened to me and invested just $1,000 had the chance to walk away with as much as $147,000 from that Bitcoin trade alone. That same month, I made another prediction that seemed even crazier. I wrote, if you missed out on the astronomical gains with Bitcoin, here's your second chance with Ethereum. No one outside of the tech world knows about it. It's still relatively unknown. When Ethereum goes mainstream, I think it'll go higher than Bitcoin. Again, that's exactly what happened. And anyone who listened to me and invested just $1,000 had the chance to walk away with as much as $483,000 from this Ethereum trade. Now, the opportunity to make those types of gains with Bitcoin or Ethereum are gone. But in the next few minutes, I'll give you the names and ticker symbols of 3 companies that are already involved in this potential dollar recall completely free of charge. These are companies that you can buy directly from your brokerage account. I even found a company that's working directly with our central bank to launch the US digital dollar. Plus, I'll discuss the 25-cent alternative investment that could skyrocket in the coming days, no matter what's happening with our economy. I believe most people will lose their entire life savings because they don't understand what's happening. That's the sad reality. But there's also tremendous opportunities if you know what to do. Making 10 times your money is not out of the question. I know that sounds like hype, but throughout my career, I've picked not 1, not 2, but a total of 27 investments that jumped at least 1,000%, as you can see on your screen. Many of these jumped much higher than 10x. There's a big reason why 130,000 independent analysts voted me as the most trusted digital currency expert. And I take that very seriously. So I feel it's my duty to warn you that this new digital dollar will not be like Bitcoin. You see, the digital dollar will be 100% controlled by the government. That means they will be able to track all of your purchases. Are you really surprised the government is taking advantage of a breakthrough technology like digital currencies to accumulate even more power? I began warning about this power grab all the way back in 2016 when I said central banks could use this technology to ban cash. At that time, I wrote, "A ban on cash is coming sooner than you think, and when it does, it will strip you bare of any privacy. It'll be like living in a glass house. The government will be able to peer into your most intimate financial dealings." As scary as that sounds, the new digital dollar will make that possible. But that's not the worst of it. The digital dollar will also be a programmable currency, which means the government could also be able to control how you spend your own money. For example, they could control how much you're allowed to spend on things that they believe are bad for you, like red meat. Or they could control how much you're allowed to spend on things they believe are bad for the environment, like fossil fuels. They could even ban you from buying books that criticize the government. That's the bad news. But here's the good news. I'm about to show you the 3 simple steps you must take to opt out of this coming dollar recall. I believe that's the only way to protect you and your loved ones from this power grab. Now, if you think the government would not like to have that kind of power, if you think they don't want to have more control over your life, this message is probably not for you. But if you've been paying attention, you know the government will take advantage of any crisis to increase its power. You've heard the saying, never let a crisis go to waste. Well, right now we're in the midst of a huge crisis, a US dollar crisis, and I found shocking video evidence that our central bank is planning to use this crisis to pull the trigger on this dollar recall. I'll play that video for you in just a moment. First, let me tell you more about this new dollar crisis because it's unlike anything we've seen before. It's a new terrifying trend called de-dollarization, where major nations around the world are dumping the US dollar in unison. You see, as the #1 world's reserve currency, most countries use dollars to transact in global trade. For that reason, central banks must hold dollars in reserve. This has been the case since the Bretton Woods Agreement of 1944, which established the dollar as the world's main reserve currency. That agreement was a game changer because it created guaranteed demand for the US dollar. It's a big reason why America became a superpower. The problem is that the US government has been abusing that privilege for decades now. Take a look at this. Our debt has exploded, especially in the last 2 decades, and it's now higher than $31 trillion, the equivalent of $94,000 per citizen. And if that wasn't enough, in February 2022, the Biden administration took that abuse to a whole other level by weaponizing the US dollar. In response to Russia's war with Ukraine, the US froze all the dollar reserves of Russia's central bank. That was $630 billion. To be clear, these were not American assets. These were dollars owned by the Russian central bank and the Russian people. But because they were held in US dollars, our government had the ability to freeze them. So the rest of the world watched that unprecedented move and they started thinking, wait a second, if the US can do that to Russia, a nuclear superpower, they can do that to anyone. That's why an increasing number of nations from Asia to Europe and Latin America have recently announced plans to dump the US dollar and instead trade in their own local currencies. It's why Bloomberg wrote, suddenly everyone is hunting for alternatives to the US dollar. For example, China and Russia have normally used US dollars to buy things from each other. But just this past year, the volume of trades using their own currencies has increased 80-fold. That's an 8,000% increase. 65% of that massive China trade is now being conducted in their Russian and Chinese currencies. China has also made a deal with Brazil to settle their trades with their own currencies. Russia and China are also talking to several other countries in Africa to ditch the US dollar. The United Arab Emirates, the UAE, and India are also in talks to shift away from the dollar. The finance ministers of Indonesia, Thailand, the Philippines, Singapore, Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, Malaysia, Myanmar, and Brunei recently met behind closed doors, and they also decided to move away from the US dollar. When the media asked about it, they released a statement saying the move is necessary to protect from possible geopolitical repercussions. We must remember the sanctions imposed by the US on Russia. Or look at Saudi Arabia. For the past 48 years, they've only accepted US dollars when they sell oil to nations around the world. But now, they said they're considering trading in currencies besides the US dollar. Even some of our allies are dumping the greenback. For example, French President Emmanuel Macron has urged Europe to wean itself off its dependence of the US dollar. Make no mistake, this is an unprecedented run on our currency. That's why economist Peter Onge said de-dollarization is real and it's happening fast. Countries are de-dollarizing 10 times faster than the previous 2 decades. Take a look at this. The US dollar share of world reserve currencies has collapsed from 73% in 2001 to the lowest level ever at 47% this year. Most Americans don't realize this is a huge deal. You see, thanks to this #1 world reserve currency status, there's always been a lot of demand for the US dollar. That's the only reason why our government has been able to spend money like drunken sailors without having to worry about any consequences. It's a huge advantage that literally gave us our standard of living. So the fact that nations around the world are now dumping the US dollar at a pace 10 times faster than the previous 2 decades is a huge crisis. Remember what I said earlier? The government never lets a crisis go to waste. I believe they're going to use this new dollar crisis to implement what they've been planning for months now, a new digital dollar that will give them complete control over your money. And they're going to tell you they're doing that for your own good to save the US dollar. If you think this is just some crazy conspiracy theory, just listen to what Jerome Powell, the head of our central bank, said recently.
A US CBDC could also potentially help maintain the dollar's international standing.
So they're openly talking about their plan. That's why Yahoo Finance wrote, US explores central bank digital currency to preserve dollar's reserve status. Bank of America is also saying the same thing. Make no mistake, the dollar recall is real and we could just be days away from the official announcement. You see, right now the US is already falling behind when it comes to central bank digital currencies. According to the think tank Atlantic Council, 114 countries are exploring digital currencies. Their collective economies represent more than 95% of the world's GDP. In other words, the entire world is getting behind CBDCs. Countries like China, India, Nigeria, and the Bahamas have already rolled out digital currencies. Others like the US, Sweden, and Japan are preparing for possible rollouts. These governments believe that a digital currency will be an upgrade over traditional forms of money because it would flow more easily around the world through digital wallets, bypassing the messy web of commercial banks and money transfer businesses. Of course, it would also give the government the unprecedented power to track and control how you spend your money. Like I mentioned earlier, once they implement the digital dollar, the government will have direct access to your bank account. For example, if we had another pandemic, the Fed could just deposit stimulus checks into every US citizen's digital currency account. And if the economy is running too hot, they could do the opposite. They could freeze a portion of your money to reduce consumer spending. Don't you think they'd love to have that kind of power? That's why central banks are moving towards digital currencies in droves. Look, regardless of what you think about CBDCs and the future of money, nobody can stop this trend. As the Wall Street Journal says, central bank digital currencies are coming whether countries are ready or not. Until recently, the US was falling behind this trend, but now they're trying to catch up. Just listen to what Lael Brainard said recently. She's a Fed governor who could be the next head of our central bank. And she said, if you have the other major jurisdictions in the world with a digital currency and the US doesn't have one, I just can't wrap my head around that. That just doesn't sound like a sustainable future to me. So the government is trying to catch up to other nations that have already launched a digital currency like China. That's why things are moving so fast. In other words, whether you like it or not, this national recall is happening. The traditional dollar is dead, and it's just a matter of time before it's replaced by the US digital dollar. As you can see here on the official government website, the official announcement could happen as soon as July 26. That's why in just a moment, I'll tell you about the 3 simple steps you must take before that official announcement. I believe this is the easiest and most effective way to opt out of this digital dollar, and your life savings could depend on it. Most people won't know what to do, and they might end up getting stuck with worthless dollars. But if you know how to opt out, if you know how to take advantage of this CBDC gold rush, you could not only protect yourself, but also come out of this dollar recall wealthier than ever. I already found a company that's working directly with our central bank to develop the digital dollar. So this is a company that I believe will play a key role in this coming US dollar recall. I'll give you more details in just a moment because there's a lot of money to be made here. You see, central banks around the world are using technology to usher in a paradigm shift in our global financial system. And I've been following this technology for a long time. I know from personal experience that every time we see this kind of paradigm shift, investors who are in the know have a chance to walk away with extraordinary profits. For example, back in 2003, shares of Apple had just crashed 70%. Nobody wanted to touch them. But I knew the company was going to lead a paradigm shift in electronic consumer devices. So when I was still on Wall Street, I picked Apple for my private clients when it was trading just under $1. Since then, shares of Apple have skyrocketed by as much as 45,357%, which turns $1,000 into more than $450,000. Then in 2008, I noticed Amazon was using technology to launch a paradigm shift in the retail space. So I profiled the company because I knew it would change the entire landscape. Anyone who listened to me had a chance to make up to 4,630%, so more than 46 times their money. More recently, in 2019, I gave a presentation behind closed doors, and I singled out Square, NVIDIA, and Tesla as some of my top-notch tech plays. And look what happened since then. Square started an amazing run and has since jumped as much as 354%. NVIDIA has jumped as high as 638%, and Tesla, which used technology to completely reshape the auto industry, has jumped even higher, as high as 2,445%. Now, of course, these are some of my best plays, but if you missed out on all these opportunities, don't worry. I believe the gains could be even higher this time, because now we're about to see a paradigm shift in the US dollar. If you look at the total supply of dollars, that's more than 15 times bigger than the market cap of all those companies I just mentioned combined. Remember, we're talking about the biggest change to our financial system in 52 years. That's why Barron's wrote, digital dollars could be a boom for tech companies. In just a moment, I'll give you the names and ticker symbols of 3 companies that are already involved in this shift, completely free of charge, but you're going to have to act fast. Because like I mentioned before, we could be days away from the official announcement. once the Federal Reserve or the White House goes on TV and announces a new digital dollar, it could be too late, and you won't get a second chance. This is truly a historic opportunity because the last time we saw a change to our entire global financial system like this was in 1971. You see, in the mid-1960s, under the leadership of President Lyndon Johnson, the U.S. government went on a spending spree, much like what's happening today. It doubled its annual spending because of the Vietnam War and social programs. At the time, the U.S. dollar was still pegged to gold. That meant other nations could redeem their U.S. dollar reserves for gold. And that's exactly what happened. With government spending getting out of control in the 1960s, countries began to dump the US dollar and exchange it for gold, which has always been viewed as a stable store of value. Now, in order to stop the bleeding, the Nixon administration announced a radical change in 1971. Without giving any warning to the American people, he went on live TV and took the dollar off the gold standard in what's now known as the Nixon shock. Listen to how he justified that unprecedented move.
We must protect the position of the American dollar as a pillar of monetary stability around the world.
In other words, he said that the government was doing that for our own good, to protect the US dollar. In reality, we all know today that this move gave the government the power to print unlimited amounts of money. Like I said earlier, the government never lets a crisis go to waste. After 1971, the US dollar became a fiat currency, and the Fed was now free to print money willy-nilly without worrying about any gold reserves. At that time, most people didn't understand what was happening, and they were caught by surprise. The result? Inflation crushed U.S. consumers in the 1970s. The purchasing power collapsed, and the dollar lost 87% of its value, as you can see in this chart. Here's another way of looking at it. It takes about $7.82 in today's money to purchase the same amount of goods and services a single dollar would have bought you back in 1970. In other words, most Americans became poorer during the new US dollar regime. But the few who knew where to move their cash actually had a chance to make a small fortune during that decade. For example, there were multiple opportunities to double, triple, even make 10 times your money or more in the stock market. Oil exploration companies like Schlumberger Limited, SLB, jumped as much as 1,032%. Helmerich and Payne also went up by 10x. Steel producer Nucor jumped as high as 2,831%. That's 28 times your money. I'm telling you all of this because I believe we're about to see a similar shock to our financial system. Just a few days from now, President Biden could go on national TV, much like Nixon did, and announce the mandatory US dollar recall. He's going to say it's for your own good. He's going to tell you they're doing that to stop this new de-dollarization trend. He's going to tell you that they're doing this to preserve the US dollar as the reserve currency, just like Nixon did. Historians might even call it the Biden shock, because it will catch most people by surprise. But today, you have a chance to prepare. You have a chance to opt out and not only protect yourself and your family, but also prosper during this coming financial shift. You just need to act fast. Because as you can see here, our financial authorities already scheduled an official announcement for July 26. Friends, this is a screenshot of their website. So this is an official date. That's just a few days away. And that's when I believe they could begin this dollar recall. Now, there's a simple move you can make today to opt out of this digital dollar. It doesn't require you to move abroad and become an expat. It doesn't require you to get a second passport. And it doesn't require you to already be rich. You'll be able to do this from the comfort of your home in just 3 simple steps. Most people don't know about this, but some of the savviest investors on the planet have already taken these steps. I'm talking about people like billionaires Elon Musk and Mark Cuban, legendary investors like hedge fund managers Paul Tudor Jones and Stanley Druckenmiller, and CEOs of major firms like Mark Zuckerberg and the CEO of Apple, Tim Cook. I put all the instructions you need to follow inside a special new report called the 3 Simple Steps to Opt Out of the Digital Dollar. Inside this report, I'll walk you through everything you need to do, step by step, and even share the complete list of banks that have already signed up for what I believe is a digital dollar pilot program. I'd like to give you access to this report right now because, as far as I know, this is the only way to legally opt out of this digital dollar. I'll tell you how to claim this report in just a moment. First, there's one more action I'm recommending you take right now. Like I said earlier, this new digital dollar will also create incredible opportunities because I believe it will send a few stocks higher than anyone can imagine. For example, big tech is all over this trend because they know these central banks control trillions of dollars. According to my research, these central banks will likely end up hosting at least part of their new currency systems with major cloud providers like Microsoft, Google, and Amazon. Google has already made inroads in the Caribbean. Microsoft helped Bahamas launch its digital currency, and Amazon is testing several CBDC pilot programs and experiments. For example, they're already working with the European Central Bank to launch the digital euro. So these 3 companies will certainly benefit from this trend, but I believe there are better opportunities than Microsoft, Google, or Amazon. You see, these companies are already too big. So even though they're participating in the development of CBDCs, it's unlikely you'll make huge gains with these stocks. But here's the good news. I found a smaller, little-known stock that I believe has much more upside potential. It's a company you've probably never heard of, but it's working directly with central banks around the world to help them launch their digital currencies. This company already helped our central bank develop its real-time payments network called FedNow. Maybe you've heard about it, but that's basically the infrastructure that would be required for a future transition to a U.S. digital dollar. That's why FedNow has been called a Trojan horse for CBDCs. You see, in order for the government to pull this off and replace the traditional dollar with a digital dollar, they need to have direct access to your bank account. And that's what FedNow gives them. And like I mentioned earlier, more than 110 banks have already signed up for its pilot program, including the biggest banks in America. This is pretty scary. But like I've said many times, it's also presenting a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Think about it. Our central bank manages over $8 trillion, and they can print unlimited amounts of money on demand. And this little-known company is working directly with them. And it's not just the Fed. They've already signed a deal with 5 central banks from other countries. And with more and more countries rolling out their own digital currencies, there's a good chance they will sign many more deals in the coming months. That's why I believe that once they officially announce the US dollar recall, shares of this company could skyrocket. That's why the world's largest asset manager, BlackRock, already invested $3.3 billion in this company. Vanguard, another Wall Street giant, has invested more than $3 billion, and Bank of America has invested more than $500 million in this single stock. I put all the details inside a special report called My #1 Stock for the Coming Digital Dollar. I'd like to give you access immediately because it has my entire analysis, including the name and ticker symbol. I'll tell you how to claim this report in just a moment. First, there's one more opportunity I want to tell you about today. You see, all these CBDCs are built on top of the blockchain. And blockchain technology is by far the fastest creator of wealth in the history of the financial markets. I say that from personal experience. I've recommended several blockchain plays in recent years across my publications, and the returns have been unbelievable. The secret is you must get into these investments when they're trading for pocket change. For example, I recommended BNB when it was trading for less than $2. It jumped all the way to $690. If you do the math, That's a return of more than 36,000%, enough to turn $1,000 into more than $367,000. Another blockchain investment I recommended was trading for 14 cents. It went as high as $119. That's enough to turn $1,000 into more than $851,000. That's an entire nest egg right there. And that wasn't even the biggest gain I found. I recommended another blockchain play that literally gave my readers the chance to become millionaires. It was trading for 13 cents at the time, and anyone who listened to me had a chance to turn $1,000 into over $1.5 million in less than a year. That's why I want to tell you about an exciting new blockchain investment that's trading for under 25 cents. Now, I want to make something very clear. These type of blockchain investments can be very volatile, so I don't recommend anyone investing their mortgage money on this, because you don't have to. These things trade for pocket change, which means a small stake is more than enough to give you a chance to make a huge six-figure payout. Also, I'll be the first one to say that these gains, they're super rare. Even though I've already given my readers the chance to make at least 10 times their money on 27 different occasions, I can't guarantee we'll see those types of monster gains again. But the potential here, it's undeniable, because the single investment would give you direct exposure to the blockchain technology that was designed for central bank digital currencies. And you can get started with less than a quarter, which means that if it jumps by just 25 cents, you'd more than double your money. Look, I know that it can be hard to believe that it's possible for anyone to turn a small stake into a 6 and even 7-figure payout, but I've given my readers the chance to do that again and again and again. In fact, some of them even went on camera to share their story. I want you to take a look.
You've turned our starter egg of $12,000 into $1.2 million. You have sent my entire investing retirement goal into warp speed.
On a $300 investment, turned it into over $200,000.
So from that $10,000 in December of 2017, it had gone up to $330,000, and we were just amazed.
From when I started, I invested about $25,000, and my portfolio is like $2.2 million.
Isn't that incredible? That's why I'd like to give you access to another brand new report I just put together. It's called the 25-Cent Moonshot: How to Make a Fortune with CBDCs, and it has all the details on this new blockchain opportunity. I'd like to send you all these 3 special reports right now because we're running out of time. You need to make these moves before they make the official announcement. So how can you get started? I'd actually like to give you access to all of these reports completely free of charge. All I ask in return is you try my monthly research service, the Palm Beach Letter, at 0 risk to you for your subscription. The Palm Beach Letter is my flagship monthly research service where I share my best ideas. And today I'm inviting you to try it out for the next 60 days with no risk for your subscription. So how does the Palm Beach Letter work? Well, the first thing you should know is that we do not accept advertisers, and we do not take commissions on anything we recommend. We're only beholden to our readers. That means that our business model only works if we show you how to make money. And the way it works is actually very simple. In each issue of the Palm Beach Letter, I'll explain the biggest trends in the markets and select my #1 investment for that month. It could be a stock, an income play, or some other little-known alternative asset I discovered while doing my boots-on-the-ground research. I'll do all the research and just hand you all the information. You decide if you want to participate. I'll tell you what to buy, how to place the trade, what price to pay, and how much money I expect you to make. I'm very proud of our performance because since I took over the reins of this publication in 2016, my recommendations have gained on average as much as 131% a year. That's more than 10 times better than the stock market. You're essentially more than doubling your money every year, which is better than all the best hedge funds out there. And friends, that's not cherry picking. That's my actual track record across up markets, down markets, and flat markets. And that's just the average. For example, one of our open positions is up an incredible 20,455%, enough to turn $1,000 into more than $205,000. So if I charged $10,000 for my research, it would be well worth it. But here's the good news. I'm not publishing my research to rich institutional investors like I used to do when I was on Wall Street. I'm publishing it to everyday folks like you. For that reason, it won't cost you anywhere near $10,000. We sell subscriptions to the Palm Beach Letter on our website for $199. That's per year, not per month. And it gets even better. I know you probably don't know me yet, so I understand I need to earn your trust first. For that reason, I'm going to give you a special discount today. Before I give you the details, there's one more special report I'd like to send you today. You see, nations across the globe are not only dumping the US dollar, but they're also buying gold at a record pace. In the first quarter of 2023 alone, central banks added 228 tons to their global reserves. That's the highest rate of purchases seen in the first quarter since the data series began in 2000. Take a look. This is very good news for gold. As the chair of the Rockefeller International, Ruchir Sharma, says, gold is now a vehicle of central bank revolt against the dollar. No wonder the yellow metal has been skyrocketing recently. But that's not my favorite way of playing what could be a new bull market in gold. You see, I found a little-known gold investment that could return up to 1,000 times more money than gold. I know that sounds crazy, but take a look. The last time gold had a big bull market was in 2007, in the midst of the global financial crisis. Gold jumped as high as 162%. And look, that's not bad, but it's nothing compared to my #1 gold investment. It skyrocketed as high as 2,100%. It's more than 10 times higher than gold and enough to turn $1,000 into $22,000. I believe we could see similar gains in this new gold bull market. Unfortunately, most people don't know about this secret because I'm not talking about collectibles, gold coins, or even a gold miner. And it doesn't involve options, futures, or anything else extra risky. But you can buy it from your computer with just a few clicks. All you need to know is the name and the ticker symbol. And you'll find that information inside this new report I'm calling the 10X Gold Secret. It's also yours free the moment you take a risk-free trial to the Palm Beach Letter today. Look, I know I've covered a lot of ground, so let me do a quick recap. Here's everything you get when you accept my invitation. 12 months of my best investment ideas. Every month, you'll get a brand new issue of the Palm Beach Letter with my latest recommendations and my market insights. Bonus #1, the 3 simple steps to opt out of the digital dollar. Bonus #2, my #1 stock for the coming digital dollar. Bonus #3, the 25-cent moonshot, how to make a fortune with CBDCs. And bonus #4, the 10X Gold Secret. Access to my model portfolio where you can see all of my current open recommendations, buy up to prices and more, and access to my special reports library. This is something I haven't mentioned yet, but you're going to love this because you'll be able to access all the special reports I published. Right now, for example, you'll get instant access to the reports called The Inflation Killer with 2,500% upside potential. My #1 high-end collectible to crush inflation, the ultimate sound money portfolio, and much more. So here's the deal. Instead of the retail price of $199, today you can become a new member of the Palm Beach Letter for just $49. That's a $150 discount. That works out to about 13 cents a day, and it will give you full access to everything I've just listed. It also comes with a money-back guarantee. Simply put, I don't want your money if you're not 100% happy. That's why when you sign up for the Palm Beach Letter, I'll give you 60 days to test out the service at no risk to you for your subscription. And if during that customer satisfaction period, you find you're not getting information that could change your financial future, or for any reason at all, you can simply call our customer service team in the United States and cancel your subscription. We'll give you a full refund, no questions asked, and we'll even let you keep everything you've received as a subscriber at no charge. You can keep all the issues. You can keep all the special reports. You can keep everything. This means that there's no risk to you at all for your subscription. Why? Because it's my way of saying thank you for giving the Palm Beach letter a try. To get started, simply click on the button below. It will take you to a secure order form where you can review everything one last time before you join. Now, a lot of people are surprised when they see how inexpensive this is, but there's a good reason for that. You see, today, I am part of the 1%. I live in the Caribbean, overlooking the ocean. I no longer have to worry about money. I'm doing well now. But it wasn't always like that for me. You see, I grew up in Britain's foster care system. I lived in a cramped, unheated room on top of a garage. Some nights were so cold I couldn't even sleep. I knew in my heart there has to be more to life than this. So when I was 16, I left for America with just $150 in my pocket. I set off to New York City because I wanted to work on Wall Street. When I got to America, I spent my first 2 years flipping burgers at a Roy Rogers and working at a loading dock in Brooklyn at night. And then I finally got an entry-level position at a major U.S. investment bank. I quickly rose through the ranks, and by age 20, I became the youngest VP in the firm's history. But I wasn't happy on Wall Street. Helping the rich get richer, it wasn't fulfilling. So I left and started publishing my own independent research for everyday people, just like yourself. My mission is to help people like you move the needle on their financial net worth. And that's why we've priced this publication at a price that barely covers the cost of keeping this page online. I want to help as many Americans as possible, so I don't want the price to be an issue. That's why this is so inexpensive. And it's why you don't even need to decide right now. You can just take the next 60 days to try everything. Read the special reports, read the monthly issue. Then you can decide later if the Palm Beach letter is right for you. Now, of course, all investments carry risk, which is why you should never invest more than you're willing to lose. I'm confident that once you see the quality of our research, you'll not ask for your money back. Instead, it's far more likely you'll send notes like this one from my reader, Michelle O. She said, "Hi, Tika. I'm a first-time investor and can't tell you how sweet this ride has been. Your plays have grown my savings from $20,000 into $135,000 in just 3 months. Retirement was a huge worry, and I did not believe it would be possible. However, with gains like this, I'm confident it will. I can't thank you enough." J.A. says, "Tika has been brilliant at explaining the various investments in layman's terms and holding our hands through the downturns so we weather the storms virtually worry-free. I can't thank Tika enough for his guidance. I can now look forward to a secure retirement." Mark R. says, "Dear Tika, I'm a 60-year-old business owner, and 2 years ago, I made Palm Beach Research my place to get educated about investing, which meant saving the 1% a year I was paying an investment advisor. Your guidance and integrity has been stellar. Remember, we could be days away from the official announcement. If you wait until you hear about it on the TV, it will be too late. So go ahead, click on the button below to get started. I'm looking forward to welcoming you to the Palm Beach Letter family. I want to thank you for watching, and as I always like to say, I want you to always remember, let the game come to you."